Welcome. We would like to present our research, Computing Educational Activities Involving People Rather Than Things Appeal More to Women. And this will be from a CS1 appeal perspective. This is research done at the Center for Computing Education Research at the IT University of Copenhagen. And we are Melissa Høgh Marker, Ingrid Maria Christensen, Pavel Grabashik, Therese Graversen, and myself, Claus Brabrand.
Let me start with a few words about the academic background of our study. So in 1998, Richard Lepa showed a correlation between gender and interests in vocational tasks on the people-things scale. And he established that women are on average more interested in working with people than men are. And on the other hand, men are on average more interested in working with things than women are. And what we did in our previous study is that we tested this initial original results of LIPA in a different context, specifically in the recruitment perspective context of high school students in Denmark. And we had ended up with three observations. So first of all, we observed that women have a stronger preference for people than men do. And when I said that, note that we don't say that this means that men have a stronger preferences towards things. Actually, our results show that they were rather indifferent than interested. Observation 2 shows that students without programming experience have a stronger preference for people than students with programming experience have. And interestingly, it combines with the gender aspect. So in other words, inexperienced women were much more interested in people-oriented tasks. And observation 3 showed that preferences depend on the task at hand. In other words, not with every task we had the same numbers. There was a similar tendency, but not the same numbers. This suggests that there are other factors that might influence the choices. So what we wanted to do in this paper is that we wanted to switch perspectives. Because originally we tested Danish high school students. That's why we called it recruitment perspective, the original study. And right now we wanted to move towards Danish university students. In other words, students who already chose the future profession, that is computer science. And instead of talking about hypothetical tasks, we wanted to talk about actual assignments. So test the preferences towards actual assignments that the students have to do to pass.
Which leads us to our objectives. We had 3 research questions. The first one was, to what extent does the gender of software development students impact the preferences for people versus things in computing assignments? The second one, to what extent do preferences vary between assignments? And the third one, to what extent do preferences vary between individual students? We created 3 out of the 4 mandatory assignments in the introductory programming course at our university. It was assignment B, C, and D. And for each of these 3 assignments, we created 2 versions, a people version and a things version. These 2 versions were completely isomorphic, both syntactically, semantically, and compositionally. And just to give you an example, we used this figure in both of the versions in assignment D. And in the people version, this would represent booked rooms in a hotel, and the things version, it would represent booked containers on a cargo ship.
Let's have a look at the results. So here are the results for assignment C. To the left, we see the people who chose the people version, and to the right, we see the ones who chose the things version. We have women represented in dark green, and we see that almost 80% of the women chose the people version, whereas only 22% of the women chose the thing version. For the men, we see an almost 50-50 picture. For assignment B, we see a similar picture, perhaps with a slightly less exaggerated tendency. And for assignment D, we see an even more exaggerated tendency. More than 90% of the women chose the people version, and only 8% of the women chose the things version. For the men, again, we see an almost 50-50 picture, perhaps with a slight tendency towards people. If we look now at the people who handed in all 3 assignments, we see for instance here, that 2 out of 3 P means they're the ones who made 2 people choices and then obviously 1 thing choice. 0 out of 3 P means the ones who made 0 people choices, which then obviously means that they handed in all 3 things versions. If we look here over to the left, we see that half of the women consistently chose the people versions. That is, they chose people for assignment B, C, and D. And over to the right, we see here that none of the women chose only things versions. Whereas for the men, we see a more uniform picture, perhaps with a slight tendency towards people.
We now turn to the statistical analysis. In our analysis, we capture the preference of a student in terms of their odds of choosing the people version of an assignment over the things version. The odds ratio then compares 2 students, 1 woman and 1 man, and it quantifies how many times higher are the odds for the woman than they are for the man. We investigate this gender effect while also taking into account that the effect may vary with assignments and individual preferences that affect student choice across assignments. The first observation we make in the study is that women are more inclined to choose the people version than the men are. Here you see the estimated odds ratios, and for context, an odds ratio of 1 would mean that the odds of the woman choosing the people version are the same as for the men. For assignment B, we see an odds ratio of 1.7, meaning that the odds of the woman choosing the people version are 1.7 times higher than those of the man. For assignment C and D, we see a more pronounced gender effect with odds ratios of 4.6 and 11.9. For assignment C and D, the gender effect is significant, while for assignment B, the effect is not significant. The effect of gender in our study varies significantly between the 3 assignments. The second observation we make is that the strength of preferences depends on the task at hand. So to understand this, consider 2 students, a median male student and a median female student. We look at the probabilities of choosing a specific version of either assignment B, assignment C, or assignment D. For the median male student, across all 3 assignments, there's roughly a 50-50 chance of choosing either version. In contrast to this, for the females, across all 3 assignments, there's a strong preference for the people version. Basically, the steeper the slope, the stronger the preference. Our study also revealed that there is a considerable variation between students. And to get a feel for this, we here see the same graph, where apart from the median student, we have also included 2 extreme students corresponding to the upper and lower 5th percentiles. For the males, we see, again, the median student with roughly 50-50 chance of choosing. And some males have a very strong preference for people, and other males have a very strong preference for things. Interestingly, we see that for assignment D, even the women who are least inclined to choosing the people version still show a strong preference for the people version.
To conclude, here is our recommendation. Educators should consider favoring themes involving people over those involving things in computing educational activities, as it appears to increase the appeal of the activities to women and at the same time does not detract men from these tasks. Even better, give students the chance to pick between a people and a things version.